Servus and hello, my name is Matthias Eichler and this is Single Track. This week I'm chatting with Melissa Tucker from the beautiful southern Oregon coast. She's the new race director of the incredible coastal trail race Secret Beach. Melissa and her team at All Terrain Adventures recently took over the race from Rain Shadow Running. They offer a 50k 50 miler and a 100k beginning and finishing in Gold Beach, Oregon. And we got links in the show notes for all of that. But the other reason why I'm chatting with Melissa this week is because Melissa just ran and completed Western States in 28 hours and 30 minutes. And the many patient years of throwing her hat in the ring this year, she was pulled off the wait list with just 9 days before the race. Well, I don't want to jump ahead of myself and let Melissa tell her story. So here she is. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on Single Track. Welcome to the show. Say hi to the listeners.
Hello, listeners. Thanks for having
me. Melissa Tucker, you are calling in from Oregon. Give us a little bit more of a pinpoint where you are at right now.
Okay, yes, I live in Gold Beach, Oregon, and it's on the southern Oregon coast, about 40 minutes north of the California border.
So, I don't want to offend you, but there is not very much down there, right?
It's pretty remote. Yeah, it's a small town. We only have around 2,000 people living here. Yeah, it's remote, but it's a super cool place, really, really pretty.
Did you grow up there, or did something draw you there?
No, I actually grew up on the other side of the country on the southern New Jersey shore. And back 10 years ago in 2012, my husband and I just decided to pack up our stuff and drive across the country. We had never heard of Gold Beach, Oregon before. But when we got here, we just loved the vibe. And it's just super pretty, super cool. We've got the beach, we've got the Rogue River, got like the coastal mountains.
I mean, it's a beautiful place, right? I mean, every time when I drive through that area, I think, man, this is an absolutely incredible place, but it's so remote. What's your closest airport?
Well, there are some smaller ones. There's a smaller one up in Coos Bay, which is an hour and a half, but mainly I fly out of Medford, which is 3 hours away.
Oh man, that's crazy. Well, I mean, the beauty sometimes is totally worth it. So, you're down in Gold Beach, and you're a trail runner, and you're a race director. Quickly give us a bio about your trail running. Give us a little bit of a history, how you got into running, and a couple highlights.
Yeah, so I actually started off as a road runner. I was running road marathons when I was on the East Coast, and I really didn't start trail running until I moved to Oregon in 2012. And I was kind of obsessed with ultras, but didn't think I could do it. Finally did in 2014. And yeah, just kind of got obsessed and just kept going from there, upping the distance.
I on this show, I have sort of this theory on why people like trail running, and I'm curious how you fit into this. Do you enjoy the long distances because you love the marathon, you love the road running, but there comes a point where the hyper competitiveness becomes a little bit of a drag, whereas sort of these Boston Marathon qualifiers become harder and harder to achieve, and so trail is something more relaxed. Or the other side, those are my two theories, that the other side is that people looking for adventures, and trail running is sort of the most low-risk way of having an adventure.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I do love the relaxed nature of it. I still do like to run road races once in a while. I think it's fun to throw that in. But I love trail races because, yeah, you kind of just go out, trot along, you eat snacks. It's just fun. And I like adventure running as well. I've done like the Wonderland Trail and like the Three Sisters Loop. Just going out there and taking a couple days to trot around these beautiful places without carrying a whole bunch of stuff on your back.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, it feels so light, right? I mean, there is something so beautiful about not backpacking and having to worry about all the permits and all the bear canisters, but being able to sort of to move light and fast and still get to take it all in. Now, you just finished Western States. Congrats. And we do have to talk about Western States. But before we dive into that, I want to keep our listeners a little bit longer waiting. You recently jumped into race directing, and I'm super excited to hear about this because you took over one of the most exciting races the Pacific Northwest has recently sort of seen coming up. You took over Rain Shadow Running's Secret Beach race. Tell us a little bit about how this transition came on, and then we can talk about the race too.
Yeah, thanks for saying that it's one of the most exciting races. I think so. It hasn't quite caught on yet, but I'm hoping that will change. Secret Beach is held right here in Gold Beach on our coast trails and the beaches here. When I first talked to James Varner about the race, I thought he was kind of crazy because these trails are so beautiful, but they are challenging. And connecting the beach and the trails for this course, it's a little bit tricky, but it's an amazing route, and I was just instantly wanted to be involved. So yeah, I was involved with the race each year that James and Rain Shadow Running did it. I did run it one year. I ran it in 2019, the 100K. And so yeah, when James was looking to pass it on, he asked me if I was interested, and I brought on my friend Tara. And yeah, we decided to take it over, and we're super excited about it. We hope that we can grow the race and share it with everyone.
Absolutely. So we'll have links in the show notes. What's the new website and for people can find out more about the race?
Well, we are on Ultra Sign Up, and we have the link to our website. Our company name is All Terrain Adventures. Our website is a little complicated to say over a podcast, but all the links are on Ultra Sign Up, and it should be pretty easy to find.
All right, people, check out Secret Beach. The reason why I'm saying it's a super exciting race is because here in the Pacific Northwest, we have this incredible abundance of both being right by the ocean and having mountains and forests and challenging terrain, and Secret Beach offers both. And you had mentioned, I want to circle back to that, you were saying that it's a little tricky to connect these trails. Tell a little bit more about how you're doing it.
Yeah, so we have a good portion of the race is run on the beach. The tricky part is we have some creeks and rivers that flow onto the beach for most of the year. They do close off in the middle of the summer and sometimes into the fall. And when that happens, you can run the beach, fully across, and you connect to the coast trails. Sometimes, as in this race history, we've had 2 years where you couldn't cross those creeks and rivers, and you have to go up to the highway. And so it can be a little complicated. That's why we decided to move the race to August. We have a really good chance that we'll be able to run the beaches all the way through. So hopefully we'll just be able to stick with that and it'll all work out.
Fantastic. So, Gold Beach, a little bit out of the way, but a perfect, and I think that's what makes it great that you moved it to August, because people can really combine it with a summer vacation. That's like one of my favorite ways of doing long races, of taking the family along and saying, okay, I'm going to do a long race, and you guys hang out in the hotel or on the beach or something, and then I'll come back and join you at the pool for recovery. And so it's great to have this in the summer. One last question. I don't have a lot of history with really long distances. Tell me about the cutoff. It seems very tight for 100K. Am I misinterpreting this?
I mean, I think it's pretty doable. The 100K is probably the tightest cutoff, but the other two distances, the 50 mile and the 50K, I believe are pretty relaxed. The 50 mile, we left the cutoffs the same as the 100K. So if a runner doesn't feel that they can make the 100K cutoffs, you do the 50 mile and, you should have plenty of time to get that done. And then the 50K has a 10-hour cutoff. So you can also pretty much, you can finish that as well.
Yeah. No, exactly. It was just 100 cutoff. What is it, 17 hours?
Yeah.
And in the vert is, how much is the vert for the 100K?
It's around 12,000 feet of vert. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so what's interesting is if you run many miles on the beach, you then get all the vert in the trails in between. What's the mixture of beach running versus trail?
Yeah, for the 100K, it's about 16 miles of beach, I want to say. And then there is several miles on the road on 101. There's a couple of spots that are unavoidable. You have to go up there. So yeah, it's a lot of single track. And the climbs are not super long. There's nothing, there's not like a 3-mile climb anywhere. It's all kind of just, constant ups and downs. It's just varying.
Fantastic. So, Secret Beach. People check it out. An absolute incredible race at the end of August in Gold Beach, Oregon. Put it on your list of races to check out. Now, we need to talk about the fact that your voice is failing because you have a perfect reason for it. You just ran Western States and you finished it. Amazing. Congratulations. Incredible. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's funny because I've been joking on the show, making fun of Western States a little bit, just because there's so much coverage and so much hubbub about it. And somehow this year I got sucked in, and I was super fascinated with the coverage around it. This was the first time running for you, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And if I follow this correctly online, you jumped in off the wait list only a few days before.
9 days before, yes.
Oh my gosh. So we need to first talk about this. So how many years have you been in the lottery?
I put in for the first time in 2017.
Okay. So, well, congratulations on just making it through the lottery. That feels like a race in itself. So You faithfully put in every year. Have you like since 2017? Okay, that was a pandemic year, but have you continuously trained up faithfully in the hope that you would get in, or how do you structure your training around the possibility that you might get in, but you don't really know?
Yeah, it was interesting. Getting in to the wait list, I was number 44 to begin with this year. So I wasn't sure, and I knew that if I did get in, I wouldn't know until right before, which is what happened. So yeah, I started the year out like guns blazing, like doing speed work and hill work, and then as the year went on, I had less faith that I was going to get in the race. So yeah, I don't know. I still was doing long runs, and I went to the Western States training camp, but I probably didn't train as much as I would have if I knew that I was in the race.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's one of the biggest X factors and challenge of the whole waitlist piece, right? Because for so many people, Western States is this, I don't want to call it bucket list item because it sounds so cliche, but it is one of those big races, and then not having the 100% assurance that you're going to make it in is super tough, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. It's been a dream of mine since before I even started putting in for the race. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I just didn't think I was ready. And now I've done enough of these longer races that I felt like I could rely on just experience and, the fitness that I had to kind of get through it. So.
Well, some people follow like super tight training plans, and you're like, I'm generally trained up. It'll be fine.
That's basically how it went. I don't feel that I ran up to my potential at the race, but I'm really happy that I finally got it done. It was a dream of mine for a long time. So just to get a buckle was amazing.
Yeah. So you had the dream, you got in, and you got it done. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the race.
So I went in my plan was, because I felt a little undertrained, and also, heat. Let's talk about that for a second. It was extremely hot that day. They said it was the 8th hottest Western states in history. And we've had one of the rainiest, coolest Mays and Junes in Oregon in the past 80 years here in Oregon. So I hadn't seen, temperatures in the 90s in, a very, very long time. So that was a little nerve-wracking. So yeah, my plan going in was to start very conservatively in the high country, and then try to, kind of move up from there. I'm typically good at moving well late in hundreds, and I'm good at running at night. So I thought that I could make up some ground there, and that didn't really happen. So.
You didn't make up ground, but on the other side, going out conservatively allowed you to survive the heat then, right?
And unfortunately, I didn't feel super hot because of, packing myself with ice throughout and stuff, but I think that the heat and the altitude took a toll on me, and I struggled to eat basically the whole last half of the race. And
in the eating nutrition in the heat is super, super tough, especially when you come from a cool climate where you didn't have sort of your body acclimated.
Yeah. And the altitude as well. I live at 350 feet, so it's the thing. Go up to over 8,
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the other big piece. All right, so I'm trying to figure out how to break down the race a little bit. Well, let me ask you this. I'm coming more from a media side. That's where my headspace is at, and I've done some comparison over the last few days with other big races and stuff like that. How do you describe the atmosphere? Because Western States is so big in our mind, but in the end it's only 350 runners. Like when you show up at a pre-race briefing or at the start line, how does it feel being at the start line, being only, if you compare that to UTMB, there's so many runners that even if you know that, Courtney Dahlwater might be somewhere there in the front, right? You're not really part of the same group of people. How does it feel being at Palisades Tahoe with such a small group of people and knowing that this is sort of the epicenter of trail running in the U.S.?
It felt like, I know that there was only 380 some starters, but it felt like there was a lot more people because there was so many crew, so many volunteers, there was media everywhere. It was like the vibe was very electric. There was a lot of energy there. The day before, picking up the number and all that, and the race morning, it was just buzzing. So it felt like there was a lot more people. And going up the escarpment in the first 3 miles of the race, you get to the top and it was like a party. Like there were people everywhere and loud music. Every aid station had tons of people. It was top notch. The volunteers, the aid stations. I've never been to a race like it. It was definitely like the Boston Marathon of ultra running for sure.
And you're describing this now in a positive way. I know a lot of folks like trail running for the exact opposite experience, and they're sort of turned off by that. Is that something you describe it electric, that this atmosphere sort of pulls you in and allows you to kind of ride a wave, or is it something that feels overwhelming?
I don't think I ever felt overwhelmed. I do tend to like trail running for solitude and peace. And this was definitely not that. So it was different, and it was fun to experience it. But yeah, I don't know that I would love to do races like this all the time. But there's something about Western states. I love races with history, and this certainly has that. And yeah, you know, just the vibe is different, and there is something about it that you just want to keep going and keep fighting and finish it for all those people out there cheering you on. And yeah, there's just something about it.
Did you have a crew with you?
Yes. So my best friend Jamie, she and I have done many adventures together, and she has crewed me at every one of my 100-mile finishes and other races as well. So she was there, and then I had two pacers. My friend Amy paced me from Forest Hill to Green Gate, and my friend Molly paced me from Green Gate to the finish.
That's really good. I've done once a 100-mile attempted, and I came to an aid station, Zion 100, and I came to an aid station at like the 26-mile mark or so. And we had just run through a brutal hot desert part, and there was even more brutal hot desert ahead of us. And the aid station was so busy. There were so many people, and I had absolutely no one with me. And it was really overwhelming. Trying to sort of navigate the crowd of people in a moment where there was no real shade and no real reprise and break, right? And there were so many people around. I was like, oh my gosh, let's just get me in and out of here. It was pretty nutty and overwhelming. And in that moment, I would have wished I would have had a crew, because a crew can sort of be the elbows for you, right? Create a little bit of a space where you can breathe if you are at an aid station where there is so much madness.
Yeah, my only 100-mile DNF was at the Bighorn 100 in 2019, and I went without a crew. I went with some friends that were running as well, but I didn't have crew. I just had drop bags, and I failed. I forgot my headlamp. I was like out wandering in the snow and the mud without light, and I dropped. And so it was a lesson learned for a race that's really important to me. I knew that I needed to have that support. And I've done hundreds without pacers as well, but I knew for this one that I wanted to have that. And it's just fun to share this experience with your friends as well.
No, I think so too. I think this is something important. I have an ongoing conversation with a friend of mine, right? Because logistically, it becomes a whole nother beast, right? I mean, you just got into Western States 9 days before the race. To get a crew together requires a lot of moving pieces, right? Just logistically, right? There's a lot of goodwill. Hey, can you spontaneously come with me and stuff, right? And it's great if you have the people, but we sometimes see our sport as this individual person running over the mountain ridges all by himself, but it sometimes does take a village to make it happen, right?
Yes, absolutely. And usually for a 100-mile race, I have like a whole spreadsheet with like crew instructions and times that I'm going to be here and there. And this one, I kind of had to wing it. I had a little bit of an idea, but it was definitely less organized than I typically would be going into a race. And I was very lucky that my friends rallied, and I was able to find hotels. That was a little tricky. A lot of stuff is booked at that point. So yeah, this one really took a group to make this finish happen. It was definitely a team effort.
Amazing. I mean, you just said that the 100-mile DNF you had was where you were without a crew. Do you feel like you needed a crew for this one? Would you have not finished without one?
Um, I don't know. It would have definitely been a lot harder because I was suffering pretty badly in the last half. So it was really good to have people that I love out there supporting me to help me get through this. My mentality going into Western States was basically finish at any cost because it took me so long to get in, and it's a chance of a lifetime. There's so many people that want to run. I didn't want to waste the opportunity by just dropping out because I didn't feel good. So I think that I maybe would have finished anyway. It just might have been even longer of a day than it was. So
No, for sure. You're making a good point. I think Tim Tollefson in one of his pre-race interviews with Iran Far, I think he spoke about this, where he said, he as elite athletes sometimes don't realize what it takes for the average person to get into Western States and how special it is, and therefore you shouldn't quit, right? You shouldn't take your starting point for granted, your starting place for granted, because there's so many people who would so gladly take it and suffer on your behalf, right? And I think there was sort of an interesting perspective that he brought up. All right, let's talk a little bit about your specific race. So you said first half conservative, and then the second half just suffer to the end. I think that's like sort of most 100-mile races.
yeah, it's funny. I've had some races where I start conservatively and then the night comes and I like the night running. It's exciting to me to be out there at night and go all through the night, and I love like getting all jacked up on cold brew coffee and just like getting after it. And so that's kind of what I had envisioned with this. And by the time I got to Michigan Bluff, my feet were like destroyed and the heat had taken a toll, and I was like already not really wanting to eat solid food. So, I kept trying to rally, but it was kind of a slow one. I didn't run a whole lot from Forest Hill on. So
That's a little secret that ultra runners know among themselves. It's a lot of ultra walking.
It was, yeah. Luckily, I was able to keep moving well hiking, and my pacers really tried to keep getting me to run a little bit here and there when the terrain was a little easier. But yeah, it was a tough one. In the first half, there's a lot of steep ups and downs, and there's a lot of rocks. The canyons they're no joke. Climbing up to Devil's Thumb, that is a heck of a climb. And then you go right back down into another canyon. It's just steep and hot and rocky, and it takes a lot out of you.
We know these places because we follow so much of the coverage. Did the course surprise you? It's a race that is being covered more than any other race in some respects. So you'd think and then you're actually on the course, and do you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. I went to the training camp, and so you cover the last 70 miles of the course in 3 days. And so the first day you go through the canyons, and then so of course that's a little slower. But then the last 2 days, when you're out there, even though you've run some big miles in the day before, like it feels pretty runnable. I ran a lot from Forest Hill on in those last 2 days of training camp. So in my mind, I was like, yeah, this is like no sweat once you get to Forest Hill. And everyone says how runnable the course is, and people run so fast on it. And it's mind blowing because really, I feel like when you put it all together, it's a pretty difficult course. I think it's the most difficult 100 that I've completed. And It is a lot of.
Just from a terrain on the trail and apart.
Yeah, the high country is technical, and then the canyons are what they are, and I think just putting it all together, the terrain is difficult. It's a lot of climbing, and then you add in the heat, and it just makes it that much harder. So, yeah, I think it's harder than people make it out to be. We watched Jim Walmsley run it in 14 hours, and we think like, oh, this is so runnable. But if you're not Jim Walmsley or, Ruth Croft, I think like it's a pretty difficult course.
The course is difficult. You blow up halfway through, but you're moving. How do you, in general, and in this race particular, how do you play this through in your mind? I mean, at every long ultra, you are hurting at some point, and you're not moving as well as you want to. But how do you deal with this in the moment? Do you try to block it out? Do you do the math game? I'm somebody who plays constant math. Well, if I'm currently at this pace, then I'm, should be there and there. Oh, wait, it took me 10 minutes longer. Now I'm fighting cutoff. I do the math game. What do you do when you sort of realize, okay, this is not working the way it's supposed to be, the way I had laid it out?
Yeah, I'm a numbers person as well. So yeah, I start to go, how long do I have? Like, can I still reach like the goals I had going in? So for this one, I had thought that I would be somewhere between like 24 and 27 hours. When things started to go bad, I was like, okay, how much time do I have? How much time do I have till the overall cutoff? And just started playing those games. And so I knew that if I just kept moving, I would be able to get there. Like, unless something really crazy happened, I'd be there. There was a moment when I got to like mile 90, I was actually able to put down some potato soup, which was the first like substantial thing I ate. And so I was feeling a little bit better, and I was like, maybe we can get it under 28 hours. And I started like really trying to run, and I was like really putting in a big effort, and it just sizzled out because after you are at the mile 95 aid station, it kind of goes like on a very exposed road, and it goes uphill to Robie Point. And it's a mean uphill. It's like on pavement, and it's really steep and long, and you're right there at the end. But for me, it was impossible to run it. I had to hike it. It was too hot, and so yeah, I don't know. Mentally, you just kind of have to embrace the suffering. I just kept saying like, this is what you came for, and you just got to get it done.
And you felt fast enough and in a good enough position that cutoff wasn't really breathing down your neck quite yet, right? So you had, you blew past sort of your targets, but you were still in a fairly comfortable place, right?
Yeah, that's right. I never was pushing the overall cutoff. I just wasn't hitting the mark that I kind of expected to. So I was, but yeah, I kept doing the math like, okay, like you're going to get this. The cutoff was not really a problem.
The math game is so fascinating. It's so fascinating what we do in our heads, because somewhat it's valuable, but in other times, I mean, I'm thinking of some of the math I'm doing, and I'm like, I'm doing the same thing over and over again just to occupy my brain. So 100 miles, 360 runners, all pacers and crew. Do you have moments where you're by yourself, perhaps, with your pacer? So does it spread out enough, or are you around enough other runners?
Yeah, I wasn't around a lot of other runners for the most part. It started to spread out like between Robinson Flat, which is at mile 30, and going kind of through the canyons. And then it seemed to kind of group up again at Forest Hill. I guess it was just where I was in the field, but I was descending into El Dorado Canyon completely by myself. I didn't see like anybody that whole descent, and I actually did see a rattlesnake. So that was a little upsetting. I'm like, of course I see that when there's no one around. But so yeah, it's spread out in parts, and then but yeah, I was around a lot of people, and I was around a lot of the same people leapfrogging back and forth, and so it was kind of fun. I didn't catch like everyone's names, but you would find out where people were from. And then there was actually a guy that I met at training camp that's from New Jersey, so we bonded at training camp, and him and I ended up leapfrogging a bunch during the race. So that was really, really cool.
All right, tell us now about entering the stadium, entering sort of that finish line, right? I think it is such a unique place. It's not quite Chamonix, right? It's not one of those European village finishes, but it is unique here in America, especially if you compare it to most other races that might finish on some trailhead in the middle of nowhere, and especially when you come in late, there's no one really around, right? So explain that feeling and how it was entering the stadium.
Yeah, so before you get to the stadium, even that you are kind of on these streets in Auburn, like leading up to the track, and the community just really comes out, and it is amazing. It's not like like sometimes at the end of races, people have been out cheering for hours, and they're just kind of like, "Oh, good job, good job, good job."
All right, yeah, yeah.
They're like ringing the bell, like kind of casually. This was different. It was like the people that were out there were really genuinely excited for you to finish. They were like really, really pumped. And there was little kids out there telling you good job. And so it was really emotional. And so my crew, Captain Jamie, came up to Robie Point to run in the last mile before the track with me too. So, we were, getting all emotional about the journey because she's been with me at like a whole bunch of races. So, the finish was, I felt like as important to her as it was to me. And, so yeah, then you see, you're running on these streets, everyone's cheering, and then you see the track and it's like, this is it, here we go. And I got on the track and started running around, and it was just like surreal. I was like, wow, this is really happening. And yeah, the crowds certainly weren't UTMB worthy, but it's probably the best crowds I've ever had at a finish line. So it's amazing.
And it is unique, right? Especially if you've seen the coverage and you've seen the banners and you've seen how the top athlete finish at this place, and you get to finish at the same place, right? I mean, there is something where it's not about fangirling for the big athletes, but being part of sort of something bigger, right? It is your journey, and you put every single step on there. Nobody carried you, but you are. As much as you're running this whole thing by yourself, you're part of sort of this bigger community.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very unique feeling, and it's awesome to be in the footsteps of like all those people that ran before me.
Amazing. You got your buckle. Do you want to come back? Is that something where you'd be like, I mean, I know how long you had to fight for it, and now you have to start from scratch. So the commitment goes way beyond just, do I want to run that course again? But where are you? I mean, it is so fresh. We're only a few days after. What are you feeling right now?
Yeah, so during the race and immediately after, I was like, I'm glad I got this done because I'm never coming back. Not only because it was hard, but because it takes a lot to get in. it was year after year of planning my race schedules around getting a qualifier so that I could enter the lottery. So where I'm at now is, I think that I have the potential to run a lot better than I did. And I think I will put in the lottery this year again, just because I have a qualifier having finished states. But I don't know that the level of commitment to run qualifiers every single year will be there. I think if I run one, I'll put in and just see what happens. But I'm not going to, be so focused on getting into Western states. I have a lot of other goals that I want to accomplish and a lot of races that I want to do that are not qualifiers. And so, yeah, I'm excited to make new goals and have new experiences.
Well, I think a lot of people who are desperately trying to get in probably thank you right now.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, one person less to worry about, because for a lot of people, they run this race and they catch a bug and they're like, this is the experience that I have to aim for every year, either because I feel the need to improve, I need to get a silver buckle next time, I left something on the field, or because the atmosphere is so special and unique that I do feel the need that I need to make this the highlight for me every year when I can. And so I think it's mature to say, look, this was great, but because it's hard to get into, let's look at some other things, right? So the rest of the running world getting into Western states thanks you right now.
Yeah, and that's certainly a thought as well. I know a lot of people that want to get in or have been putting in longer than I have. I mean, there's people now that have been putting in the lottery for like 8 or 9 years. That's a long time. And so, yeah, everyone that wants to get in deserves to get a spot at some point. And, I hope not to be like, trying to, get that spot anytime soon.
So you said you have other dreams and objectives, now the monkey's off your back. What's out there? What is inspiring you to look for?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I would love to go back to the Bighorn 100 and try to finish it. That's kind of high on the priority list. I'm turning 40 next year, and for that milestone birthday, I'm going to go over to Europe and hike the Camino de Santiago. So not exactly a running goal, but a long distance hiking goal. And yeah, I would love to run other races with a lot of history. I would love to go to Leadville. It's a little scary because of the altitude, but I would love to do that. Yeah, I'd love to go to the Bear. I'd like to go to the East Coast and do some races over there, like, closer to my family, like maybe like Massanutten or, Old Dominion. That's a race with a lot of history. So yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot of stuff. There's a lot of races out there and there's a lot of experiences to be had, and I'm excited to pursue some of those things.
I mean, that is the beauty of our trail race sort of in landscape, right? That we are purposely trying to create courses that are unique, that aren't like the other. We are not trying, that's sort of a little bit different with the marathon. Marathon, yeah, you can run in different cities, but because the time is so important, people try to create courses that have the least amount of obstacles in them in order for people to get fast times. And with trail running, every place you go to has its unique environment, its unique trails, its unique landscapes, just the panoramas. And then, as you're saying, the history with it on top of all of that makes it really fun to become sort of a traveling tourist and saying, okay, now I want to experience a race on the East Coast because that's where I'm from, and the trees are different over there, right? The routes will be different. The trails will pose a different challenge, and to experience sort of running in all of these environments is a great way of sort of getting to know different parts of the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like you, like bringing it back to what you were saying about Secret Beach, how it can be a full vacation for a family or for someone. I love doing races like that, like picking a destination and like making a trip out of it. So yeah, I definitely have a lot of places that I'd like to go and do things. So yeah.
Yeah. I last summer I DNF'd. I ran the 100K at Ultra Tour Monte Rosa, and I finally got to experience a race in Europe. And the trails around that region, they were so steep, like so steep. I'm still not over how steep they were. Like, I remember texting a friend of mine I was in a fairly dark spot, and he was like, look, I see you on the tracker. You are so close to an aid station. And the aid station was in the middle of this village, because that's what aid stations are in Europe. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, if I'm so close, like less than half a mile, it can't be that hard. And the entire village was on a hill. Like, you were in the village and you were still going up a hill that was steeper than some of the mountains that we run out here. And I was like, yeah, if I go ever back out there, I need to do something different with my training. I got that experience of running in Europe, but I was not ready for that.
Yeah, I from what I've heard about it, it's no joke. That's why UTMB is not on my radar. I don't think that I have what it takes to do that race.
Come on, you just completed Western States. You can do UTMB.
I would go over and hike it, I think, but I don't know if I would race it. But Europe is amazing, though. I would definitely like to go over and explore more over there, more trails for sure.
I think practically, my friend just ran UTMB, and I think practically one thing that you need to prepare yourself for is you need to be okay with going through a second night.
Yeah.
Right? I think UTMB takes so much longer, and I don't know what your race history has been, but this is sort of the place that I'm at when I'm looking at races. I'm like, I love going into one night. I love starting a race comfortably in the morning. Sometimes, I mean, could even be at 4. I don't care. But going a whole day, I can handle, and I can get excited about going into the night and through the night. But then, and Western States in some way was that for you, and you've done under 100 miles, so you have a similar experience. But then approaching a second full day in daylight and second time heat, that's brutal, right?
Yeah, I've never gone through a whole second day, and yeah, this was the closest I've come to that. Actually, this was my
right.
This was my longest 100-mile finish, and yeah, it's hard when I had looked forward to the night, and then you get through it, and then the sun comes up, and it started getting hot again. It's like, yeah, I don't know that I could go through a whole nother day, but yeah, I don't know, maybe someday I will, and I'll look forward to that experience.
Serious. I remember at Zion, it was brutally hot. It was early season race, so I had no chance for us here. I'm up in Olympia, Pacific Northwest, super cool too. No chance of any heat training. It was over 90 degrees. And the second day was going to be just as hot. And at like 6 a.m, I came to an aid station, and I looked at cutoff, and I looked at the temperature ahead of me. I'm like, I'm not doing that again. I was done.
Oh. Zion is beautiful, though. I would love to go out and race there too.
No, absolutely. I was really, really surprised. I loved the course. There were some sections that were sketchy, like they were, when you're up on these mesas in the middle of the night and you hop from boulder to boulder and you try to find the route at night. And you're like, so I don't know, am I going to fall off a mesa here any minute? So there were moments that felt a little sketchy, but overall, I mean, yeah, the environment to race, especially we're talking about going to a different environment to race, right? We're here in this Pacific Northwest, lush forests, very soft, cushy trails for most of the year, right? And then you go down there and you run these cement hard desert trails and stuff, but also super fun. All these mountain bike and BMX hills and downhills and stuff, and you're like, whoa, this is cool. So yeah, no, good place to run, Melissa. This was incredible. I do love your perspective on such an historic and such an iconic race. It's exciting that you were able to get in and you were able to complete it on such relatively short notice, jumping in off the wait list. Again, congratulations. And give our listeners one more time a big invite to come down to your race.
Yes, everyone should put Secret Beach on their list for sure. It's an incredible course, so beautiful. You run on the most beautiful beaches with big rocks jutting out of the water, and on trails with like tons of Sitka spruce trees everywhere, like thick, dense forests. It's just an incredible environment, and we would love to have you. And yeah, I'm excited for it. I hope that it's a race that can grow.
We'll have links to all of this in the show notes. Do you want to direct people to your personal Instagram, website, or anything?
Sure. Yeah, my personal Instagram is just keep running 34. I post a lot of my running adventures, races, and a lot of pictures of my dogs. So if you like that stuff, that's where I'm at. And then All Terrain Adventures, our business, also has an Instagram, which is
perfect.
A lot of Secret Beach content.
A lot of Secret Beach content. Well, I mean, a race in August in Southern Oregon sounds absolutely fantastic. Melissa, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming on Single Track. Thanks for your stories about Secret Beach and about your journey along Western States.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was super fun.